and welcome to the December 12th, 2022 City Council work session. It's nice to see so many people with us tonight, and the Urban Renewal Agency meeting and public hearings. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. Anyone wishing to access the meeting can do so by watching the live stream available on our website, the broadcast on Comcast Channel 21, or by following the access instructions listed for this meeting on the city webcasts and meeting materials web page. Tonight's meeting will include a continuation of a previous public hearing, a public forum, and 2 additional public hearings. So happy holidays, everybody. Sign-ups are closed for the continuation of the public hearing, and speakers will be announced from the original list from November 21st. If you wish to speak during the public forum or other hearings and haven't already done so, please fill out a request to speak form available on our public webcast and meeting materials web page. For those who are here in person, printed forms are also available at the entrance to the room. We'll accept request to speak forms until 7:35. These requests to speak forms will be used to generate the random order of speakers and correctly enter speakers' names into the public record. For those who are joining the meeting by phone, who wish to provide testimony and are unable to complete the request to speak form online, press *9 when the form is announced, and the last 3 digits of your phone number will be added to the speaker's queue. And as a reminder, specifically, particularly because we have a really full room today, that we have a couple of basic rules around decorum. We ask that you resist showing flags, signs, making loud or disruptive speech or noise, or do anything to really disrupt our ability to conduct business. We are focused on providing a safe and respectful space here for everyone to express their points of view. And so we thank you for respecting one another as you speak. And you're always welcome to wave your hands in silent support when you hear something you like. And additionally, I see a few folks wearing masks. We are encouraging you, if you are ill or have been exposed to someone who is ill, we really encourage you to join this meeting remotely rather than in person. And I see you're spread out as much as you can be in this space, so thank you for that. And those of you who are comfortable wearing masks, thank you for doing so. And if you need a mask, there are some masks at the back of the room. And so with that housekeeping underway, I have a couple of formal openings. The first is our land acknowledgement. Since time immemorial, the Kalapuya people have been the indigenous stewards to our region, building dynamic communities, maintaining balance with wildlife, and enacting sustainable land practices. Today's land acknowledgement is a way of resisting the erasure of indigenous histories and of honoring Native communities by inviting truth and reconciliation. Following treaties between 1851 and 1855, Kalapuya people were dispossessed of their indigenous homeland by the United States government and forcibly removed to the Coast Reservation in Western Oregon. As we consider the impacts of colonization, we also acknowledge the strength and resiliency of displaced indigenous people. The city of Eugene is built within the traditional homelands known as Kalapuya Ilahi. Kalapuya descendants are citizens of the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde Community of Oregon and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians of Oregon. They continue to make contributions in our communities here and across the lands. We express our respect for the inherent political sovereignty of all federally recognized tribal nations and indigenous people who live in the state of Oregon and across the nation. And now, again, before we begin our formal meeting, I have 2 proclamations. One, I won't read because I have already read it, but in case you were not aware, that December 10th, so Saturday, was International Human Rights Day, and I presented a proclamation in honor of that day at a film showing and a meeting of our Human Rights Commission, and it was a fascinating film about a transgender woman and a school-age child in Hawaii, and an explanation that in Hawaii, in original Hawaiian culture, There is male, female, and middle. And it's a long-standing Hawaiian culture I was not aware of. It was a fascinating film and a wonderful discussion, and was presented in honor of International Human Rights Day. So wonderful, wonderful experience, and I'm grateful to our commission for making that possible. We are also today recognizing International Day of Persons with Disabilities. And so this proclamation I will read. It's not too long. Whereas the United Nations approved the Universal Declaration of International Day of Persons with Disabilities on December 3rd, 1992, and whereas the observance of the day aims to promote an understanding of disability issues and mobilize support for the dignity, rights, and well-being of persons with disabilities, and whereas people in vulnerable situations, such as persons with disabilities, are sometimes the most excluded and left behind, and whereas the international theme for 2022 is transformative solutions for inclusive development, the role of innovation in fueling an accessible and equitable world. And whereas it is crucial for governments, public and private sectors to collaboratively find innovative solutions for and with persons with disabilities to make the world a more accessible and equitable place. And whereas the city of Eugene strives to break down barriers, seen or unseen, that can hinder accessibility, inclusivity, and progress. By working to remove these obstacles, we create a more diverse and welcoming environment. Now, therefore, I, Lucy Vinnis, Mayor of the City of Eugene, Oregon, do hereby proclaim December 3rd, 2022 to be International Day of Persons with Disabilities in Eugene, Oregon, and encourage all people to work together to foster transformative solutions and create a more accessible and equitable community for all. Thank you. All right, we have time on first item on the agenda is committee reports on items of interest. Are there counselors who have anything they want to share at this moment? I think in the interest of time, since we have a full crowd and many people needing to speak, that's fine. So I'll turn to Council President for the consent calendar, please.
I move to approve the items on consent calendar 1.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you very much. That passes unanimously. And so now we are ready to continue the public hearing on an ordinance prohibiting fossil fuel infrastructure in new low-rise residential buildings and adding sections 6.695 and 6.696 to the Eugene Code 1997. And I will turn it over actually to Sarah for the list of speakers and to share the process. One moment and I'll share my screen. If you are on the list and attending via Zoom, please take this time to ensure that your screen name in Zoom matches the first and last name you used to sign up on November 21st. If your screen name does not match, we cannot promote you to a panelist. I will announce 2 speakers' names at a time. If you're providing testimony via Zoom, when it is your turn, I will announce your name and promote you to panelist status, and you can unmute and turn on your camera if you wish. If you are announced as the next speaker and physically in the room, please move to the seat in the front row designated for the next speaker. When it is your turn, you may come to the podium. When you are called to speak, please state your name clearly, and for Eugene residents, your ward or neighborhood if known, before beginning your comments. You will have 2 minutes to speak. If you are watching the meeting, the timer should be visible and a yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light indicates the end of the 2 minutes. And for those who have connected to the meeting via phone and don't have the benefit of seeing the timer, please be aware that your microphone will be muted at the 2-minute mark. Please note, please note that screen sharing or displaying information on the screen is not allowed, and any misuse of the platform or violation of the council's code of conduct
conduct will result in immediate termination of speaking privileges. If you have documents to give council, please place them in the council inbox basket near the podium at the front of the room. And our first speaker will be Cami Morris-Mitzner, followed by Lee Bess. Cami Morris-Mitzner in person. Okay, so I'm not seeing her on Zoom. So I'm going to move on to Lee Bess, followed by Jess Ludwig, then Catherine Williams.
Yes, this is Lee Bess. I am a resident of Eugene in Ward 7. I'm talking against the ordinance that you're passing because in November of 2018, we lived in a gas and an electric home, and our average utility bill was $300 a month. That's under Pacific Gas and Electric down in Paradise, California. November 18th, 2018, the Camp Fire destroyed our home, and we ended up moving into an all-electric home. That summer was very hot, and the all-electric home, our utility bill went up to $600 per month. With the rents what they are and inflation going the way it is, the people of Eugene cannot afford to have their utilities double. Last month, Governor Newsom asked Californians not to charge their electric vehicles because they were having power outages and they were going to have brownouts. We're going to have by 2035, hopefully they say, all electric cars. Well, with that, where are we going to get the power? If everything goes electric, we're not going to have the power to generate that. We need natural gas to generate electricity. We have hydroelectric power, and we can work this out and bring it in slowly, not just say, oh, you're going to do it. Please consider the people of Eugene, the people that cannot afford to have their utilities double. Thank you for your time, and I hope you consider not passing this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Next is Jess Ludwig. Is Jess Ludwig in person? Okay, I do not see Jess Ludwig on Zoom, so we will move to Catherine Williams, followed by Charles Hubbard, then Quinn Breland. Catherine, please unmute and go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Catherine Williams. I'm the Vice President of Public Affairs and Sustainability at Northwest Natural. Thank you for the opportunity to make brief comments this evening. Climate change is an existential issue and one that can only be solved through the participation of both energy systems. Energy systems and planning are extremely complex. We have experts who have spent thousands of hours modeling and looking at sound analysis for our low carbon future. We are decarbonizing, and one important way we are decarbonizing is through renewable natural gas, or RNG. RNG is not a fossil fuel. It's biogenic, which is why its use and life cycle emissions do not contribute any net greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. The important role of RNG in decarbonizing our region is recognized in Executive Order 2004, the Climate Protection Program, and in state law through Senate Bill 98. There is vast renewable natural gas supply potential with billions of dollars of development now flooding North America. Just 5 years ago, there were only about 40 operating RNG projects in the US, but today there are over 260 projects and 114 more are under construction. Supply estimates of potential RNG produced in this country is equivalent to the total amount of energy used by the entire residential sector in the US today. Other countries are taking advantage of this sort of potential. In Denmark, supportive policies have led to displacement of about 30% of their conventional natural gas. These are the kinds of solutions Northwest Natural is pursuing. Over the past 3 years, we have brought the city multiple plans that would reduce emissions more than the 0.1% that staff confirmed with city councilors during your July 25th work session. As has been the case throughout the process and still today, we want to be part of the solution to help you and our region decarbonize safely, reliably, and affordably. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Charles Hubbard, followed by Quinn Breland, then Eloise Parrish-Mueller.
They spelled my name wrong. It's Hibberd, for some reason.
Okay, I'll correct that. Thank you.
I oppose this banning the gas. We've been down this road. I was here when they were doing the West Eugene Parkway. The citizens of Eugene voted to have it done, and the city council killed it. We opposed the the EMX bus down West 11th. I'll go down that road, and my business is down there. I'm from, I live in River Road area. The buses are running empty out there. I think it's a waste of our money. But this gas, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we didn't have a clue that technology would have advanced, that we can look up any information you want on your cell phone. And where government gets involved and a few people make the decisions, let the people decide on that. I would like to see you guys put this to a vote, put it to the people and let them decide, because they're smarter than just a few of you guys are. The other thing is that down the road, like that lady just said, is there's going to be alternative for fossil fuel gases. And you're going to stop these people from building their homes. And later on, when there's no electricity and there's alternative for gas, are you guys going to come out and help those people get their houses hooked up for gas because the electricity can't keep up? EWEB says they can't keep up with, they haven't got the capacity to do the gas in the future. If everybody goes, do electricity, anyway, they're going to use natural gas to make the electricity in the first place. So I just encourage the city to take it to the people if you do want to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Next, we will hear from Quinn Breland. Is Quinn here in person? Okay, I'm not seeing Quinn in person or on Zoom, so we will move on to Eloise Parrish-Mueller, followed by Michael Sherman, then Dave Gillespie.
Hi, my name is Eloise Parrish-Mueller, and I'm a lifelong resident of Eugene. After more than 2 years of dedicated community efforts and council discussion, I'm really excited that we're finally at a point where we can take decisive action to stop the proliferation of polluting natural gas energy systems in new homes, and to create a plan to equitably transition our existing buildings to renewable electric power. Northwest Natural seems to have plenty of money to waste sending propaganda to consumers. It's time to tax polluters who have been profiting off of poisoning our atmosphere for decades, and to use those funds to ensure that everyone can afford clean, safe electricity. My house is currently stuck with natural gas appliances because there's not yet a system in place to adequately subsidize our energy transition, but my family and I would much rather have a 100% renewable home. The proposed ordinance would not cut off needed household energy for people like us. It would just prevent more people from being caught in the trap that we're in when they purchase a new home. And I wanted to address some of the points that have come up around so-called renewable natural gas. This is really greenwashing a technology that is actually relying on other polluting sectors, such as factory farms, landfills. And so it's caught up in a lot of those things. It can also still have other co-pollutants and health impacts. And so this really isn't a solution going forward. I think it's really important to look at who's bringing it up and what their motives are, and actually know the science behind it, and be really clear-sighted with that. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Eloise. Next, we will hear from Michael Sherman, followed by Dave Gillespie, then John Abbey. Michael, please unmute and go ahead.
Hello, City Council. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Michael Sherman, and I'm a resident in Ward 2 of Eugene. I'm here to support the decision to prevent further expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure in our city and residential structures. 2 weeks ago, in the last time of the public forum on this topic, the UN Climate Conference, or COP27, had just concluded in Egypt. Sadly, the nations of our world were unable to reach meaningful agreement on steps forward to reduce carbon emissions worldwide. I have heard people say that these large problems of the climate and what to do about it should be left up to decision makers on the federal and state level. Unfortunately, it seems like a trickle up, not trickle down approach is what is needed for any change to happen. To me, this proposal to prevent new residential and I enforce new residential gas hookups is the least that we can do. Please vote yes and move forward and take one step forward in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we will hear from Dave Gillespie. John Abbey is having technical difficulties, so we're going to move him down the list a little bit. So we will hear from Selena Blick. So Dave Gillespie, then Selena Blick.
Hello, my name is Dave Gillespie. I've been a member of the Eugene community for almost a decade now. I'm a builder, and I often have conversations with my clients about electricity versus gas. And there seems to be a lot of misinformation and a lot of information out there too. And I encourage people to do their own research. And oftentimes they come back to me and they're surprised about how unhealthy gas is inside of homes. All gas does have benzene molecules in it. Benzene is 6 carbon molecules with very strong bonds around them. And it's highly volatile, meaning it evaporates into the air and it gets into our bodies. And we don't have a way to metabolize benzene. Look, once it gets into your body, it stays there. Like every single molecule of benzene that has gone into your body is still there. And there's a linear distribution of negative health effects that come with exposure to benzene. There's also nitrous oxide in all gas that goes into homes. Nitrous oxide is a very dense, heavy molecule that sits like down and floats onto the floor, and you breathe it in, and it's highly neurotoxic. And it causes asthma in kids and adults. And no company should have a pipeline of these toxic chemicals into our homes. So I highly encourage you to explore electrification. It's a great solution. We're uniquely situated for it, both with our climate and with our electric grid. We're ready for it, and the technologies are fantastic for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next, we will hear from Selena Blick, followed by Todd Miller, then Lottie Road.
Mayor Vinnis and Eugene City Council, thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony. My name is Selena Blick, and I am on the executive committee of the Oregon chapter of the Sierra Club. I am testifying today in support of the ordinance to electrify new residential construction and strongly encourage the council to move it to a vote in early 2023. I don't currently live in Eugene, but I did for 21 years. I grew up in Eugene and my family still lives there. I care about the health and safety of the Eugene community deeply, and I care about how the policies that this council passes affect the rest of our state. Passing this ordinance would not only be a historic move for Eugene, but would set a precedent for other cities across the state to stand up to fracked gas companies and move towards electrification. I currently live in Bend, where we are also asking our council to require new buildings to be electric, but we are not nearly as far along in the process. You have the support in Eugene to pass this policy and in turn show other cities like Bend how it can be done. You all have the chance to be climate justice leaders, not just for Eugene, but for the whole state. I am also here as a preschool teacher to speak on behalf of my 3- and 4-year-olds who cannot testify, but who will be affected by climate policies passed today. They have already lived through so much COVID and climate chaos, and yet still have trust in adults to keep them safe. I hope that we don't betray that trust. I hope that we all can do our part to take meaningful action on the climate crisis, and passing this ordinance is a great place to start. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we will hear from Todd Miller. Is Todd here in person? Okay, I am not seeing Todd on Zoom either, so we will move on to Lottie Road, followed by Tina Patel, then Eileen Herman. Lottie, please unmute and go ahead.
Can you see me?
We cannot, but we can hear you.
Okay. Mayor Venice, City Council, and City Manager Mediary, thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony. My name is Lottie Rohde. I live in Ward 1. I'm a senior at Churchill High School, where I'm the president of the Climate Action Club, along with the 4J Climate Justice Team, and am a regional leader for Our Climate and a member of Sunrise Eugene. When I'm not in school or volunteering, I work at a childcare where I'm surrounded by children. These children are truly what keep me going and are why I'm here today. And when they ask me, why can't we go outside? Is it the smoke again? It breaks my heart that someday they will face this harsh reality of climate change. I want to start off by also thanking you for prioritizing the health of our climate and community by voting forward 5 motions of electrification this past July. We are so close to a meaningful climate policy. If we put this off any longer, the effects of this ordinance will continue to allow the industry to delay climate action and cause uncertainty about the environmental and economic benefits that come from electrification. A concrete policy to decarbonize our buildings are needed now. The harm of gas infrastructure needs to end, and we need to support low-income and BIPOC communities, which are often the most affected by fossil fuels. We need to use our privilege to help those who don't feel like they have a voice. I urge council to support an ordinance mandating that residential buildings in Eugene be completely electric beginning on June 1st, 2023. I also ask that work sessions are scheduled as soon as possible to continue moving a commercial electrification ordinance forward. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Lottie. Next, we will hear from Tina Patel. Is Tina here in person? I'm not seeing Tina on Zoom either, so Eileen Herman. Next, we'll hear from Eileen Herman, then John Abbey.
I'd like to submit this article. Okay. Hello, my name is Eileen Herman. I'm from Ward 5. I would like to call to attention to this article in Forbes magazine this past June by Mike Schellenberger. In it, Mr. Schellenberger cites a study noted in the Harvard Business Review by 3 top university economists. He also cites the New York Times and Discover magazine. In summary, the article suggests solar panel manufacturers are not being forthright with the economics or the volumes of toxic waste that will be produced. At this time, Chinese affiliated companies have shut out most of the international competition of panel production by heavily subsidizing the industry with cash, coal power, and forced labor. China also currently supplies 60% of the industry's rare earth metals, far more than the nearest competitor. Both factors are likely to be leveraged in international relations. The US government also heavily subsidizes the solar panel industry at this time, which masks the true costs of the technology, which the ordinary consumer will eventually be asked to pay. It should be about 4 times greater than it is right now. That is what it's going to end up being conservatively. Solar panel manufacturers claim a 30-year lifespan, but in reality, the panels are showing to be having to be replaced every 15 years. They also tell us that these panels are recycled, when in actuality, discarded panels are now being shipped to landfills in sub-Saharan Africa because it is 10 to 30 times more expensive to recycle them than to produce new panels. These broken and discarded panels pose severe toxic waste hazards to any community that accepts them and to the water supplied by leached metals. These African countries are least equipped to safely manage these toxins. In conclusion, solar panels production is predicted to quadruple in the next decade. By 2035, discarded panels will outweigh new panels sold by 2.5 times. The sheer volume alone of toxic waste will completely demolish the economics and purpose of this clean energy. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. Next, we will hear from John Abbey. John, please go ahead, unmute, and please go ahead.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Ward 4 in Eugene. And I remember
John?
going from 70, yes. Hello?
We can barely hear you. Please speak into your microphone.
Okay, is that any better?
That is much better. Thank you.
All right. I was a kid. I remember the 1970s oil crisis when there was a lot of interest in having the U.S. become energy independent. And the president put solar water heating panels on the White House roof. The fossil fuel companies already knew about global warming, but they chose to keep their research results quiet. And the next administration took the panels down, the crisis seemed to pass, and everybody moved on and forgot about it. I was very disappointed as a kid because just for pollution, I thought it would be great to start moving to something different. Then at the end of the 1980s, after graduating from college, I had a job working on science and math curriculum, specifically an ecology curriculum on climate. And I remember tuning in for James Hansen's testimony to Congress, where there was bipartisan interest then to do something about it. And by 1992, George H.W. Bush signed the UN Convention on Climate Change. It was bipartisan interest, but the fossil fuel companies who knew what was going on chose to push propaganda and lobbying. They hired the Heartland Institute, the same company that helped confuse people about tobacco for so long. And the one party went along and with the lying, and we lost another decade. In the early 2000s, a lot of lobbyists, continued with that, and even climate activists like Bill McKibben were fooled into thinking that natural gas was a good bridge fuel, and it does burn cleaner. But the methane itself is a terrible short-term, increasing the greenhouse gas. And since then, we've only found out more and more about how much leakage there is through the entire system. So, I mean, my main question at this point is why this is only being proposed for homes and low-rise buildings. I understand there's other legislation, and I hope it follows along quickly, because we've been waiting for decades for this kind of movement to happen. So yes, Eugene has a chance to be a leader,
Thank you, John. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Linda Kelly. Is Linda here in the room? Okay, next we'll hear from Linda Kelly, followed by Brittany Quick Warner, then Paul Moore.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Linda Kelly, and City Manager, sorry. And I reside in Ward 1. So I'm here to support an ordinance to electrify all new residential construction. There's no denying we have inadvertently dug ourselves into a hole with the use of fossil fuels for energy and must engineer a quick and major shift if we are to avert the worst scenarios of climate change. We didn't know, now we do. Changes are daunting. Where do we start? Electrifying new buildings, starting with residential homes, is a clear and easy step to take. The co-benefits of healthier indoor air quality are safety and important. Current research shows the negative health effects of gas stoves. They have lost their Energy Star status. Older people often forget to turn off a burner. This is not important with an electric stove, but can be catastrophic with a gas stove. I personally know of 2 incidents where this has been true. With the necessity of moving away from gas lines, pipe fitters are worried about their incomes. This is a valid concern. San Francisco, a strong union city, solved this issue by requiring gray water systems to be part of large new construction projects. That requirement is now expanding to include smaller construction sites. Pipe fitters are now also needed in the growing geothermal industry. There are solutions to these work challenges. We, the citizens of Eugene, need our council to resist the inaccurate and fear-based propaganda that is being circulated by our gas company. They say people need an energy choice, but what choice do the 480,000 refugees in Chad alone, due to climate change-driven water wars, have? What choice do our grandchildren have? Yes, we each have a choice, and our choice affects everyone. Instead of saying,
Thank you, Linda. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Brittany Quick Warner, followed by Paul Moore, then Daniel Noonan. Brittany, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Venice, City Councilor, City Manager. Brittany Quick Warner, resident of Ward 5. I also have the honor of serving as the president and CEO at the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here tonight representing our more than 1,200 businesses and community members who are our members. Tonight, I'm here to express opposition to the natural gas ban being considered for new residential development. I want to start by making it clear that we understand, and I understand and believe that our climate is changing and our globe is warming, and we all have a role to play in addressing that crisis. Another real crisis we're facing is a crisis of public trust, or a lack thereof, in our government and our elected officials. We do believe the council has the authority and right to make policy decisions on behalf of the community they were elected to represent. Key here is on behalf of and represent. The responsibility is in your hands to do the hard work necessary to get the word out and to understand where your constituents stand on this issue and the full scope of impacts of your policy decisions. This is good governance, and how you go about doing that in earning the trust of the public and the community is how you were able to make these types of hard decisions. As evidenced by the first round of public testimony on this issue, many people are concerned, frustrated, confused about what exactly this policy would mean. While you've delineated between these different gas bans, the general public is just beginning to learn about what this may mean. There's an enormous amount of fear based in real concern over unknown and unresearched impacts on businesses and everyday citizens, and in this situation, our already dire housing crisis. It should not be left to climate advocacy groups or the chamber to educate the community on the impacts of this policy. If it's not worth the time and effort to do the research on economic, social, and climate impacts, including a robust community outreach process, it's not worth considering at the council table, and it should be asked of the voters instead. We're here to support you. We want to work with you, and we know that you can lead our community towards success. Please do that in this issue.
Thank you, Brittany. Next, we will hear from Paul Moore, followed by Daniel Noonan, then Dharmika Henschel. Is Paul Moore in the building? Okay, I am not seeing Paul Moore on Zoom. So next would be Daniel Noonan, followed by Dharmika Henschel, then Micah McComber.
Mayor Venice, City Councillors and City Manager Maderi. My name is Danny Noonan. I am a climate and energy strategist with Breach Collective, which is a 501c3 organization based in Eugene and Portland, and whose staff union is affiliated with Communications Workers of America Local 7901. And I'm also a resident of Ward 7. I'm testifying in support of the ordinance to electrify new residential construction, and I strongly encourage council to pass the ordinance by early 2023. You've heard from me many times at this point at public forums regarding the urgency and benefits of pursuing building electrification in the city. So I wanted to use this further opportunity to draw attention to a statistic that has been misinterpreted by Northwest Natural and others on this council. This statistic comes from figure 2 on page 10 of the July 25th, 2022 City Council agenda packet, and has been interpreted as suggesting that the proposed ordinance would result only in an emission savings of 0.1%. This is incorrect for multiple reasons. The most glaring is that the figure only accounted for buildings constructed or connected to gas in the year 2037. In other words, it ignores emissions reductions from electrifying buildings constructed in the years 2023, for example, to 2036. And I've confirmed this with City Sustainability Manager Ian Penn, who I believe submitted a letter to the Rebuildings Task Force, the State Rebuildings Task Force today, addressing this misinterpretation. My understanding is that these figures also assume that the city's overall emissions would increase over this period on a business as usual pathway, which has the effect of minimizing the emission savings from electrification as a result. And as I only have 10 seconds left, the other issue is that the figure only looks at annual emissions in the year 2037 and therefore overlooks the cumulative emission savings from now until then. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Next, we will hear from Dharmika Henschel, followed by Micah McComber. Is Dharmika Henschel in the building? I'm not seeing Dharmika in the building or on Zoom, so we'll move to Micah McComber, followed by Michael Allen.
Good evening. Thank you, City Council members. Thank you for your time. I'm a local home builder for over 20 years. Please do your own research and think for yourself on this issue of banning natural gas. I urge you to go online to oregon.gov, our state website that I would consider to be factual and accurate without major political influence or agenda. Oregon.gov, type in the search bar electricity, click on the first link, electricity mix in Oregon. where you'll see data and charts of Oregon's electricity use from 2012 through 2020. In 2020, if you combine coal plus natural gas for electricity use, it accounts for 48% of total electricity used in our state. Natural gas alone generated 21.5% of our electricity use in 2020. In 2012, natural gas was only 12% of our use. In 8 years, natural gas almost doubled. Hydroelectric dropped 7% in the same 8 years. It'll continue to drop. Just read the news about dams and seismic upgrades. Meanwhile, wind and solar combined to only increase 3% along the same years, up from 5.5% to 8.6%. Also, research electricity base loads and peak loads, which are during cold winter months to heat our homes in our area. Transmission efficiency of natural gas in heating your home is much better than electricity that's generated by burning natural gas from a distance. This proposed forced electrification will result in more natural gas being burned at EWEB, converted into heat into electricity, transmitting over the power grid, and finally converting it back into the heat, which results in huge loss of efficiency and takes 100 units of energy input to equal only 32 units of heat energy in the home, versus natural gas piped to your house directly is 100 units of energy input versus 92 units of energy and heat energy in the home.
Thank you. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Michael Allen, followed by Aaliyah Altimus, Elliot Farron, then Chuck Arford. Michael, unmute and go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Venus and city councilors and city manager. I am Michael Allen. I live on the coast just north of Florence. I am co-leader of the Oregon chapter of the national organization Elders Climate Action. Our chapter has members from across the state, Lane County, and Eugene, who believe, as I do, that we all have a part to play in combating the climate crisis. Many elders, including my wife, Pat, and I, grew up in homes where gas appliances were common. We've come to learn that indoor air quality worsens and associated heat burdens increase when continuously exposed to this pollutant. In our final years on this earth, we worry about the future of our children and grandchildren. We thank you for taking the lead in considering critical electrification policies in Eugene. Our elder members in cities and counties across the state are looking to Eugene to set the example for other electrification efforts that will be essential to meeting local and statewide emission reduction goals in Oregon. Please note that a county in Maryland has in itself adopted an ordinance to prohibit or to ensure that buildings are electrified. So it's happening all across the country. Elders Climate Action supports the building electrification ordinance like the one being considered and urges the Eugene City Council to vote to transition residential buildings in Eugene to be all electric. Thank you very much for your attention in this most important matter.
Thank you, Michael. Next, we will hear from Aaliyah Altimus, followed by Elliot Farron, and then Chuck Arford. Is Aaliyah in the building? Okay, I'm not seeing Aaliyah in the building or on Zoom. Next, we would hear from Elliot Farron, followed by Chuck Arford, then Stephen Riley.
Good evening, Mayor Venus, city councilors, and city manager. My name is Elliot Farron. I grew up in Ward 7 and now I live in Ward 2. I work downtown as an attorney. Climate change is here now. We've all breathed the smoke. Many days I can't ride my bike to work because it's too bad. I have 2 young children, and it breaks my heart they won't get to grow up with the same consistent clean air that I enjoyed as a child. Climate change hurts people in the global south more than it hurts us. This is unfair because the global north has burned most of the fossil fuels and gotten the economic benefits that caused that warming. The least we can do is stop growing our emissions by building new fossil fuel infrastructure. This measure doesn't take anything away from folks who already have gas. It just stops us from locking in more new construction into this primitive form of power. There will be times when you'll be asked to make hard choices about enacting emissions restrictions that could hurt the most vulnerable among us in the short term, but this is not one of those times. Foreclosing new fossil fuel construction doesn't hurt anybody except the gas companies. This is an easy call and it's the least we can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Next, we will hear from Chuck Arford, followed by Stephen Riley, then Kelly Dundon.
Chuck Arford, Ward 8. Father and grandfather, it's good to see you all this evening. I can't believe how inexpensive my all-electric home is. Because of methane leakage, frack gas can be 3 or 4 times as bad for the climate as an equivalent amount of coal or oil. It is destroying our earth and our community. Frack gas is the fentanyl of fossil fuels, and this is what Northwest Natural is selling, and it needs to stop. Let's discuss misinformation. The city has confirmed that Northwest Natural and its allies has misrepresented the number used for emission savings for electrification in 2037. The number is much higher. And now for the real jaw dropper. The company used no methane emissions data, 0 in its calculations for natural gas emissions. This is an incredible omission, inexcusable. We wouldn't be having this debate if it weren't for methane leakage. Which company's data is practically useless. I have sent links to the city council and to the mayor. Northwest Natural cannot stop these methane leaks. It leaks from stoves that are off, from gas meters, from my neighbor's home. I smell it on a regular basis, and Northwest Natural says that's just normal exhaust. A safe and fairly educated guess, with methane leaks included, good companies' estimates of total methane or total emissions from natural gas in Eugene can be multiplied by 4 or more, meaning they make up over half of all local greenhouse gas emissions now through 2037. Gas stoves and health, just Google it. You'll find that Northwest Natural, like Big Tobacco, spreads misinformation and lies about this hazard. Northwest Natural will continue to lie. They will continue to polarize our community with disinformation. They will continue to stall and try to drag this out while they make obscene profits, destroying our planet by dumping their waste into our atmosphere. Because this is what fossil fuel companies do. We can stop it. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Stephen Riley. Is Stephen Riley in the building? All right, we will hear from Stephen Riley, then Kelly Dundon, then Jennifer Sunseri.
Good evening. I'm Stephen Riley. I live in Suna neighborhood. Lived here for 71 years. Children and grandchildren live here. I am not being paid to be here. I'm not doing it for class credit or reading somebody else's script. We have a right to make a choice. I'm sure most of this body is very fond of talking about choice on other matters. We deserve a choice on what we want to use to heat or power our homes. Many of us are using gas because it's more efficient, more effective, more economical. E-Web cannot keep up with what would be a demand that if you are doing with gas. That's well proven. Another matter is, and I've experienced this, as many other people have talked about, if we have a storm damage, wires go down, people are without heat. The only thing that kept us going for a week and a half was we had gas and could use a small generator to run a fan and keep our home warm. It was down to 20 degrees. A wise person always has alternatives. You don't put all your eggs in one basket and count on that to always work. It never happens. The purpose of City Council is to help guide our city, keep things running smoothly, and be here for the benefit of the people. Passage of this would cause an undue economic burden on tens of thousands of people in this community. I strongly recommend voting against this, give the people the choice that they deserve to have, and do not commit restraint of trade. Thank you.
And next, we will hear from Kelly Dundon, followed by Jennifer Sunseri, then Ethan Klein. Kelly, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Dundon, and I am the Environmental Policy Program Manager at Northwest Natural. In January, new Oregon rules took effect under the state's Climate Protection Program. Included in these rules is a requirement for all natural gas utilities to reduce emissions with steep penalties for noncompliance. In other words, the carbon reductions required for the natural gas system in Oregon are now more stringent than the 100% clean electric bill, HB 2021. There have been suggestions by those advocating for gas bans and electrification that there is ambiguity in how Northwest Natural and other gas utilities will comply with the CPP. In reality, there is no ambiguity at all. The CPP from the state's Department of Environmental Quality even defines the compliance tools we can use, including energy efficiency, renewables for the pipeline, and community climate investments, or CCIs. It is also worth noting that Northwest Natural has provided our regulators with analyses on how we intend to comply with these emission reduction requirements, while, as always, maintaining reliability. All of this and much more is available to you in our most recent integrated resource plan. That plan is posted on the Oregon Public Utility Commission's website, and a copy was shared with you earlier this fall. The requirements for us to decarbonize and our company's commitment to decarbonization are already in place and in motion. The council's proposed plan is redundant, unnecessary, and we think will prove to be ineffective in doing what we all want, which is to meaningfully reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Kelly. Next, we will hear from Jennifer Sunseri. Is Jennifer in the building? Okay, I'm not seeing Jennifer in the building nor on Zoom. So next we will hear from Ethan Klein, followed by Kim Rush, then Michael Hennessy. Ethan, please unmute and go ahead.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Mayor Venus, City Council, and City Manager Manderi, thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony. My name is Ethan Klein, and I'm a resident of Ward 1, Emily Semple's ward. Wildfires are increasing in frequency throughout the state due to the effects of climate change. We can play our part in mitigating the effects climate change has in our community. At this moment, I have heard fear of power outages and the need for gas in these situations. But most gas-powered appliances still rely on electronic components like starters to work. Without electricity, gas furnaces, gas ovens, tankless gas water heaters won't work. Including this are also gas stovetops and gas fireplaces. Power outages have become more frequent with the drastic changes in destructive weather, more wildfires and snowstorms increasing in frequency with each year here in Eugene and throughout the state, where there weren't these frequency of natural disasters and destructive weather before. Investing in a diversified power grid that will support truly 100% renewable electric energy will provide us more efficient and greater safety nets when there are power outages. This investment will also do double duty, helping mitigate the destructive weather events of tomorrow. Just on a personal note, I'm only 30 years old and have a tremendous amount of anxiety over climate change and kind of where environmentally our world is heading if we don't take bold action soon. Inaction, stalling, and speaking in platitudes with corporate propaganda on savings and choice will further entrench us in climate catastrophe and won't get us anywhere. Our world will be on fire by that point. But there is a transformative opportunity in front of us here at the local level with the potential to make waves at the state, regional level, and even nationwide. Due to this, I strongly support the ordinance to electrify new residential construction that is being considered tonight and strongly encourage the council to move it to a vote in early 2023. Thank you for your.
Thank you, Ethan. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Kim Rush, followed by Michael Hennessy, then Jake Huff.
Mayor, City Council, City Manager. I'm Kim Rush. I'm Senior Vice President of Operations at Northwest Natural. I joined Northwest Natural 20 years ago because of its people, their integrity, their dedication, their values. Our Eugene employees are your constituents. They're your neighbors. They live and work here. Northwest Natural, we're your local utility. We've been proud to contribute millions of dollars to the livability of Eugene. In our taxes, we've helped build schools, improve roads, and support public safety. In our contributions, we've supported homeless shelters, youth and environmental organizations, and food banks. I spoke about our commitment to Eugene several years ago, the only opportunity Northwest Natural has been given to address this council. I reiterated our deep commitment to partnership on decarbonization. Since that time, Northwest Natural has presented the city with 5 different emission reduction proposals, one of which would have encouraged energy efficiency and innovation for low-income customers. All 5 proposals have been rejected by this council. All 5 would have far exceeded the emissions reductions estimated by the city for banning natural gas in new homes. How does this make sense? How does this contribute to our shared goals of reducing emissions and addressing climate change? I am a mother of a teenage son, and I worry. Climate change weighs heavily on him. It is why I am so committed to quantifiable emission reductions, and it's why I sincerely hope we can move beyond performative, symbolic measures and work together on meaningful solutions to serve a Eugene community. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Michael Hennessy, followed by Jake Huff, then Allie Lee, and the final speaker, Larry Moser.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members and staff. I am absolutely impressed by how much energy we have used to try and eliminate 0.1% emissions. I am absolutely amazed. I am against banning Northwest Natural Gas to new homes. I'd like to ask a question to the audience. How many of you realize how much coal the state of Oregon uses to produce electricity? Raise your hands, just one. Okay, I got 4 hands. Let me explain that the state, by the report that they put out from the Energy Department, which was updated July 8th, 2022, uses 26.47% from coal. Do we think coal is good? That's the state of Oregon. Well, that kind of surprised me, and the fact that they only produce 38.91% from hydro in a good year. Needless to say, the drought in 21 and 22 has definitely cut into that, I'm sure. In addition to that, our own EWEB claims to have one of the cleanest power sources in the nation, but uses 2% from coal. Does that make any sense? And yet, now they're recommending decommissioning the Leberg Dam, which could provide 4% of their power needs if they recommissioned it, provided a fishway, and it'd be a win-win for the fish and for the power, instead of buying additional power from Bonneville Power Association and paying to have it decommissioned. I would recommend, Mayor and Council, that you get EWEB out of the coal buying power business. Self-sufficiency should be a big...
Thank you, Michael. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Jake Huff, followed by Allie Lee, then Larry Moser. Jake, please unmute and go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Very good. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, I wish to speak. Oh, I'm Jake Huff. I'm in Ward 5. I wish to speak about a different aspect of this debate. I'm less concerned with the pros and cons of natural gas, but I am very concerned about our freedom to choose. In May of 1983, when I joined the Utah Air National Guard, I raised my right arm to the square and swore an oath to, among other things, protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from all enemies, both foreign and domestic. I swore that same oath again in September of 1989 when I was sworn in as an employee of the Federal Aviation Administration. I hold those oaths as sacred. I believe that there is more to this move to ban natural gas than just an attempt to protect children from developing asthma in homes that use natural gas. My late wife and I both developed asthma caused by live Christmas trees in our home. It took us a couple of years to figure it out, but we did, and we chose to buy an artificial tree instead. Miraculously, no more seasonal asthma. Would the City Council have entertained an ordinance banning natural Christmas trees in homes because the two of us developed asthma? Probably not. No, in my opinion, this isn't really about protecting people from the possible effects of using natural gas. I believe it is about exercising power over people and taking away their ability to choose for themselves. It is another step along the path to tyranny, and it must not be allowed to happen. You council members are supposed to represent your wards, not rule over them. And the vast majority of people in the city of Eugene want the freedom to choose for themselves whether or not to have natural gas in their homes. Whether for cooking, heating the water, heating their homes, or all of the above, they want to be able to choose natural gas or electricity. You must not take away our freedom to choose for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Jake. Next, we will hear from Allie Lee, followed by our final speaker, Larry Moser. Allie, please unmute and go ahead.
There we go. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony. My name is Allie Lee. I was born and raised in Eugene, Oregon, with roots in Ward 6. I serve as a health and equity electrification specialist with Climate Solutions, working in both Oregon and Washington. I want to thank you for your hard work and dedication in talking about climate change and air quality. Now is the time that Eugene can join approximately 90 jurisdictions in 11 states who have adopted building electrification policies, which includes Washington State, which now has the most climate-friendly statewide commercial and residential building codes in the nation, essentially transitioning new buildings to use heat pumps for water heating, space heating, and cooling. The World Health Organization and the United Nations has declared air quality is the second most important environmental emergency to our planet, second only to climate change. Here in Oregon, as we talk about health statistics, we have over 4,381 cases of pediatric asthma, 35,000 cases of adult asthma, and over 19,000 cases of COPD. Study after study has shown that indoor and outdoor air quality pollution, such as that generated by the combustion of fossil fuels like methane in buildings, disproportionately impacts historically marginalized communities, including low-income, Black, Indigenous, and people of color households. It is important that we ensure that low-income families have access to capital as well to assist with this transition in their homes. That includes utilizing city and public dollars, such as that of the upcoming IRA funding that impacted and just transitions can take advantage of. Health and equity needs to be to the forefront. Our children, our grandchildren deserve healthy homes, healthy kitchens, and healthy communities. Let's make this happen. Please approve and adopt and support this ordinance. We thank you and we look forward to a clean future.
Thank you, Allie. Next, we'll hear from Larry Moser, our final speaker.
Mayor, Council President, City Council. I'm Larry Moser. I'm a business agent for Local 701 Operating Engineers. I live and work in Blaine County and surrounding areas. I'm a hobby farmer. I believe we should let anything go, waste, RNG from landfills, farms, put waste to work and create jobs in Lane County. Let us make RNG together. I'm also here to speak on behalf of Eugene residents' energy choices. I have with me letters signed by more than 3,000 people who have live and work in Eugene. Let me say it again, from those 3,000 people. Dear Eugene City Council, I want you to know I stand with the majority of the people in our community who know a diversified energy system is the fundamentally strong and more affordable and more reliable. We don't want bans on new natural gas hookups or forced electrification. Instead, we want a choice, a diversification, set a solution and lower carbon emissions in an affordable sense. Please see thousands of people listening in this want to have say the ordinance and vote no on this. And this is a list of all the people we have that have signed this. So please look that over and vote no.
Speaker.
Thank you all. much. And with that, we conclude that public hearing. I appreciate all of you coming back to enable us to complete the testimony. I will open the floor if councilors want to make brief comments, but I will also note we will be following up with another meeting. So we don't need to have a full discussion with more things happening, but you're free to make a comment. Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank the people that also showed up that had signed up before, but it left before they were able to speak at the previous public hearing. It's unfortunate we were unable to hear you tonight, but we still take written testimony as well. So I just wanted to make that clear. Your voices are important, and we do want to hear what you have to say. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for reminding everyone of their other opportunities. And so with that, we are going to move on. We are finished with that public hearing. Again, thank you all very much. And we are ready for the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the city council on any city related issues, except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official. And so again, I will turn to Sarah to present the list so people know what order. And a note, how many speakers do we have?
27.
27. Okay, so we're not, okay, we're good.
Signed up to speak via Zoom, please take this time to ensure that your screen name in Zoom matches the first and last name you used to sign up to speak. If your screen name does not match, we cannot promote you to a panelist to speak. I will announce 2 speakers' names at a time. If you are providing testimony via Zoom, when it is your turn, I will announce your name and promote you to panelist status. You can unmute and turn on your camera at that time if you wish. If you are announced as the next speaker and physically in the room, please move to the seat in the front row designated for the next speaker. When it is your turn, you may come to the podium, and when you are called to speak, please state your name clearly, and for Eugene residents, your ward or neighborhood if known, before beginning your comments. You will have 2.5 minutes to speak. If you're watching the meeting, the timer should be visible and a yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light indicates the end of the 2.5 minutes. For those who have connected to the meeting via phone and don't have the benefit of seeing the timer, please be aware that your microphone will be muted at the 2.5 minute mark. Please note that screen sharing or displaying information on the screen is not allowed, and any misuse of the platform or violation of council's code of conduct will result in immediate termination of speaking privilege. If you have documents to give to council, please place them in the council inbox basket near the podium at the front of the room. Our first speaker will be Lynn Woodrich, followed by Zachary Vishanoff.
My name's Lynn Woodrich. I'm the active Bethel Community Co-Chair living in Ward 6 with my 94-year-old dad, and have been a homeowner in the Bethel portion of Ward 8 for over 25 years. I'm speaking for the active Bethel Community Board. We sent you a letter of support for electrification and another for the public health overlay zone and risk bonds. We're asking council to move forward with common sense climate policies to require that newly constructed residential and commercial buildings in our city be built all electric, and that the city set a formal goal to transition existing residential and, where feasible, commercial buildings to 100% electric by 2035. There's also a desperate need for a public health overlay zone in West Eugene. We look forward to the follow-up work session. I can't stress enough the necessity of implementing this policy for protecting the lives of the most vulnerable people living in the Bethel community. We don't want to ever see another J.H. Baxter type polluting business in our area. Our ABC general meeting will be on Zoom on Wednesday, January 18th from 7 to 8:30 p.m., where we will be discussing the results of our 742 Bethel Visioning surveys and the online survey we will be promoting on January 1st. We have sent invitations to our local representatives, but all of you are welcome to join us to hear about our Bethel area plan objectives. Building electrification and implementing the public health overlay zone and risk bonds are a crucial first step in a more equitable and sustainable future for our neighborhood. We strongly urge you to support these measures and to schedule a work session in the near future for our Bethel area plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Next, we'll hear from Zachary Vishanoff, followed by Eloise Parrish-Mueller.
Hi, I'm Zach Vishanoff. I think Ward 1 is my ward downtown here. First of all, I'd like to talk about your City Hall project. The City Hall project has been stalled because you want to build new. The E-Web building is already there. The greenest buildings are the ones that are already built. If any of your environmental talk was based in reality, you would have already moved into that beautiful building by the river and made that your city hall and started to restore public trust that you're making common sense decisions. Before the first hearing on the natural gas, I noticed the mayor on KEZI saying she's had her mind made up and that the natural gas ban was already left the station. And so that is a chilling effect on the entire process and helped people who might have testified at the first hearing or might have gotten involved to just stay home, throw up their hands, and undermining the public trust further. So this issue of natural gas ban is a great opportunity to potentially begin restoring trust in government and using common sense. And same with the City Hall thing. If you moved into the E-Web building, people would know you're no longer insane and you're no longer going to hit them up for a bunch of money that doesn't exist. And so I'll leave you with a question. Will U of O be exempt from a natural gas ban? I imagine that is a major hole in this whole initiative. It's a matter of selective enforcement. By leaving U of O exempt, which they are on most of the laws you pass, it's a donut policy, and that U of O will do whatever U of O wants. And so please clarify that exemption that they'll get.
Thank you, Zach. Next, we will hear from Eloise Parrish-Mueller, followed by Shannon Rosetta. So it looks like Eloise is no longer here. So next we will hear from Shannon Rosetta, followed by Dave Schallberg.
I think it's appropriate that I follow Zach, who I have never heard or met before. The thing that has disturbed me the most is the process itself. I don't know many of you. I don't think people in the community know you. I've written letters to my council member, Mr. Keating. I've never had any response. I had some response today from Randy Groves, which I appreciated, but you're not connecting with the people that you're in charge of representing, and you don't know what they want. And I think it's, he mentioned, Ms. Venus, that you're on television saying, I've already decided I'm going to vote in favor of this amendment. Well, I wonder, why did anyone bother to come? If you need to recuse yourself from the vote, you had already decided what you were going to do before you listened to any of the testimony. It's like a judge sitting before a poor guy going to jail and saying, I'm glad to listen to you, but I've already decided and made you a reservation in the penitentiary. I mean, the process has been ridiculous from my standpoint. I've never dealt with the city before. I've dealt with business. I've been a manager of a large business. I've been a school counselor. I've worked in the district. I've never seen an organization that felt they were more powerful than this group. And I don't think you have the power to enforce electrification on the entire city of Eugene without some kind of an election. I would be willing to abide by it if I felt it was a valid choice by the people of the city. So it's really a matter of process. I think you've overstepped your bounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Next, we will hear from Dave Schallberg, followed by Rick Rosetta. Is Dave in the room? Okay, I am not seeing Dave in the room or in Zoom, so we will move on to Rick Rosetta, followed by Marcia Barr.
Mayor, council, city manager. I've been a resident in Eugene for 53 years. I've practiced law in this city for 50 years. I have three things to say about the process that's been involved here. Number one, if the new counselor who comes on and replaces Claire Surratt, without having heard the testimony, he or she should not be able to vote on this issue, period. Second, I agree with my wife that Mayor Venus should not be participating in this vote since she's already expressed her view that she's made her decision already without listening to the testimony. And number three, the process of deciding this situation may be within your power as a home rule body. However, people need to make this decision as to the choice that they have to make regarding their own lives. If the people are given the opportunity to listen to the facts, which I have not heard so far, and I've listened to both sessions, there's been no evidence regarding the catastrophic expectations about climate change in this area, whether this will serve any purpose, whether it will make anything good, other than one thing: it is virtue signaling. And virtue signaling is not a valid basis for public policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Next, we will hear from Marcia Barr, followed by Glenn Smith.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak before you. My name is Marcia Barr, and I reside in Ward 1. I was a public school teacher. I'm a mother and a grandmother, and I've been an activist who has stood before you many times in the last 8 years, encouraging you to lead our city toward a fossil-free future. I'm grateful for the leadership that you have shown in bringing forward building electrification efforts. I believe in representative governance. We elected you to guide our city toward a healthy future, and I'm grateful for the countless hours that you have put in towards that work. I have been involved in this process. I've heard many people saying that they haven't been included. I've been involved in this process, as I know many other climate activists have, for 2 years. So we elect you to represent us. And I know that you have been spending a lot of years educating yourselves on how to bring us forward in a fossil-free future. The writing is on the wall. We're now in the midst of climate crisis that is challenging every living human on the planet, as well as all the non-humans, in ways that are unprecedented. My identity at this point in history is to be the best ancestor that I can be for current and future generations. I believe that it's incumbent on each and every one of us to do whatever small thing we can at every opportunity as individuals in our homes, neighborhoods, cities, and in all areas of influence to ensure that we are bringing forward a healthy, safe, diverse, and livable environment for a future that we will not be around to see. I acknowledge that these are not easy choices for you as mayor, councilman, and city manager.
Thank you, Marcia. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Glenn Smith, followed by Greer Ryan. Glenn Smith in the room? Okay, I'm going to promote Greer Ryan. It'll take just a moment here. So next, we will hear from Greer Ryan, followed by Douglas Bovee.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you. Mayor Venus and City Council, thank you for providing this opportunity for testimony. My name is Greer Ryan, and I'm the Clean Buildings Policy Manager for Climate Solutions, which is a regional nonprofit focused on accelerating clean energy solutions to the climate crisis. I came here tonight to cheer you all on and to thank you for your serious consideration of this important issue and for all of the work you've put in so far to get here. But I've decided to change my testimony a bit based on what I've heard from gas utility representatives here tonight. I want to correct the record because I worry that mischaracterizations shared will perpetuate in the public discourse. So for the first point, one gas utility representative pointed to Denmark as an example of a government that is moving towards alternative fuels such as biogas to heat buildings. I imagine they mentioned Denmark in particular because they participated in a delegation with Denmark officials to learn about decarbonization strategies. My organization also participated in this delegation, and Denmark representatives have been clear. They're moving off of gas use in buildings. Their buildings are already primarily heated by either district heating or electric heat pumps, and is their official government stance to continue that progress to electrify more buildings. They plan to use biogas and hydrogen for hard to electrify sectors instead, such as high heat industrial processes. We should be focusing our efforts on doing the same. I also want to correct the record about the gas company's climate protection program compliance plans. I heard earlier that there's no ambiguity about how the gas companies will comply with these requirements. But anyone who's been following the natural gas fact-finding investigation, which is the official regulatory proceeding on this matter, will see that there's been great debate about how the gas companies will meet state climate goals. There's been consistent and robust expert pushback about the costs, risks, and reasonability of the gas company's assumptions that went into this modeling. And the IRP that the company mentioned has not yet been approved by regulators, and many of the same debates are at issue in that proceeding. It makes sense that the company might say that they have a preferred pathway to decarbonize, but it's not okay for them to claim that there's no ambiguity in how the state's climate goals could be met, or how the climate protection program in particular is going to be met. Thank you for this opportunity to weigh in and correct the record on these issues. We're cheering you on.
Thank you, Greer. Next, we will hear from Douglas Bovee, followed by Dr. Rachel Anderson.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I'm Douglas Bovee, formerly of Ward 1 and now an interested citizen of Springfield. I'm a physician working part-time for Lane County here in Eugene. So I'm still interested. Prescribing methadone and buprenorphine to treat opioid dependency, and a volunteer with 350 Eugene. I wish to speak to the good company analysis provided to you in July 2022. In that analysis, there is an often quoted statistic about carbon emissions saving with electrification. The 0.1% saving is projected for 1 year, not for everything up until then. We've got to get that clear. It's very important to distinguish that. And yes, if it was 0.1%, we would be spinning our wheels outrageously, but it's not just 0.1%. We're talking about a cumulative process here, more like 12 or 13%. Good company analysis shows a projected cumulative emission savings of 12 to 13% over the 15-year period. This cumulative carbon emission saving is much more important than a single year savings. It is essential that you relook at this distinction in your deliberations. There is no longer any question that EWEB can provide the electricity needed to support full electrification on new construction. And there is no longer any question that methane leaks from pipelines contribute to the greenhouse gas along with carbon dioxide produced with the combustion of methane gas. And that cooking with methane gas increases the risk of asthma symptoms in children. There's no debate about that anymore. It's clear as a bell. So on a later note, I note that Lucy and Mike are dressed in red along with many of us. I suspect that's not intentional, but it's appreciated nonetheless. Please note that most of the young people testifying here today are promoting electrification. That it's their future. And also,
the state of Oregon does use too much fossil fuel. There's no doubt about that. The rest of the state is a problem. We can lead the way. eWeb is 90% fossil free. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Dr. Rachel Anderson, followed by Dave Schallberg, who was able to get into our Zoom, then Deb McGee.
Hello, Mayor and councilors. My name is Dr. Rachel Anderson. I'm a resident of Ward 2. Thank you for the opportunity tonight to speak to you. I would like to talk about two items. First, I would like to comment on the proposal regarding disallowing natural gas in new residential builds. I urge the City Council to not pass this measure. The ruling will have a negligible to non-effect on emissions, yet would remove choice and diminish the ability of residents to have backup forms of energy. We have lost electric power to our home for over a total of 2 weeks since we moved here just a few years ago. We are in the process of adapting our home to have backup energy. It is wise to have the ability to have more than one type of energy source in your home. I urge you to please not pass this proposal. I would also like to urge the councilors to vote for Thomas Hira as interim councilor for Ward 7. Thomas is a highly qualified candidate who is independent and can bring positive perspectives to the City Council. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Next, we will hear from Dave Schallberg, followed by Deb McGee, then Natalie Crowder. Dave, please unmute and go ahead. Hey, Dave, I'm going to move on to Deb McGee. We will come back. Oh, Dave, are you there?
I'm there.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right, thank you. Yeah, my wife and I live in the Santa Clara area. 74 years old. We have used natural gas our entire lives, and we've had our children around. We've had our friends, family. We've never suffered any type of effects that we could ever relate to natural gas. It's been a great heat source for us. We had some emergency situations when we lived in Cottage Grove about 7 years ago. We were out without power for a week. We stayed at a hotel in Eugene. We had to run down to the house there and turn on faucets and everything to keep it from freezing. We've also had that experience here in Eugene where we had some freeze, and we unfortunately have gas here. We were able to stay in our home. We were able to keep it home dry, and it's a great heat source. We've listened to what has gone on here with the different testimonies and people, and there's a lot of energy around this. And it's a serious question to be answered for the people who live in this community. And it really needs to go to a public vote. I just can't see how commissioners can sit down and decide this for our whole community. Let the public decide. They're the ones who know what is best for them. Having the choice is something that America is all about. And this is a smart choice to let us have a choice in this. 35%, as I understand it, of all of our electricity comes from natural gas power plants. If you start banning the use of natural gas here, it goes to the next community, and something has to supplement that. And what that amounts to is more electricity. That amounts to more fossil fuel usage. I think you're really compounding the problem and making it actually worse than it is currently now. Climate change is one of those things that's been going on for millions and millions of years. It'll continue to go on. I don't think anybody should deny that climate changes. It does. It always has. What causes it certainly is a large debate with a lot of different people. But everybody has their opinions and everybody has their data and stuff. And talking about data, I've listened to a lot of testimony here, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of emotion around what is going on. So put it to the public vote, give the public, trust them to make the right decisions, and they will. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Next, we will hear from Deb McGee, followed by Natalie Crowder, then Richard Locke.
Good evening. My name is Deborah McGee. I've lived in the county for 40 years. It's been very informative being with you for a number of these sessions now, listening to our community speak. I sincerely want to thank each one of you for your service to our community, and thanks to you, Manager Maderi. I'd like to share a couple of observations from those sessions, and maybe it's because I'm a Libra, but I kind of got this image of a scale. On one side of the scale, the evidence I heard was, I work for the industry. I sell products that use the industry. I like how it works for me. I don't want change. I don't want to be regulated. So opinions, beliefs, personal interests, including paychecks. I was a single mom with 2 small children. I understand the need to feed your family. I also understand there are 3 more times the jobs in the renewable energy industry. On the other side of the scale, the evidence was young people passionate about the intergenerational injustice, indeed the intergenerational violence of my generation, leaving the world we came into much, much worse for them. Yes, some are sad, some are mad, and most are very, very scared. I saw community organizers and volunteers who have no personal financial gain to make, volunteers who believe in science. I saw business owners and workers who also understand the science and are willing to be part of the change. So I ask each one of you, which side of that scale will you tip? Which side, so that we all have a livable future? A final observation, we have beloved neighbors amongst us who do not know we are in a climate emergency. 421 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, when 350 is the safe upper limit. Our oceans are dying. Weather is unpredictable. Here in Oregon, our house is on fire. Councilor Groves, you know what to do if our house is on fire. You don't wait and see how it turns out. You don't hold back hoping the state or the federal government will act. You don't get a ballot measure to see if the neighbors think you should address the emergency. You act. World scientists say we are in an emergency. Please, it is time for action. Pass residential electrification. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Natalie Crowder, followed by Richard Locke, then John Prince.
Hi, I'm Natalie Crowder from Ward 5, Mr. Clark. I wasn't intending to speak, so all the things I had written about asthma and natural gas, I left all the studies. I'm a nurse. One of the things many of the people that spoke at the other forums talked about asthma. Well, natural gas is not does not cause asthma. The things that cause asthma are tobacco smoke and pot smoke. Pot smoke is right at the top. So if we are concerned about our children in your home, don't smoke cigarettes because they create asthma in children. The other things are pet dander, mites in our homes, mold, which in the Willamette Valley, we have a lot of mold. And it can create asthma in children and adults. I appreciated the man's. He was allergic to his Christmas tree. Yes, there's all those things that we bring into our homes that we're allergic to and create asthma problems. Natural gas is not one of them. I do believe in natural gas. I've had gas in my home for my whole life. I don't have asthma. My kids don't have asthma. I think it's a choice that we have to have. This is a free choice that we should be able to have gas in our homes or electric. And I do believe that the council shouldn't make that final decision. It should be to the vote of the people. We have intelligent people out there and they should have a choice to decide. The other thing I want to address is and I did feel that it was really important that the person that's brought onto the council, because they've not heard the hearings, maybe they shouldn't be part of that vote. So I don't know what happens with that. I do want to encourage you to consider Janet Ayers. She is a 34-year-old resident in Ward 7. We've met with several of the people that are running for the position, and we do feel that she is the most qualified and the most able to lead the ward right now. It's a 6-month appointment. You can appoint, or then the vote of the people will come in. So there's my multitude of things. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Richard Locke, followed by John Prince.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. What a night, huh? Okay, I'd like to, I am Richard Locke. I am Ward 8 business owner and the founder of the Eugene Business Alliance. I would like to first off say, I think one of the most important things right now is to encourage our mayor to point us in the right direction here coming up in Jan 4th. Then the next thing is that no doubt we have a real civic engagement problem in Eugene. We cannot get people to, it takes a crisis that's not a crisis to get people to show up at this place. We've wasted more time and energy on this issue when we should be talking about the real issues. And this is just an exercise of, I don't know what to call it. I called it last time I was here, one-upmanship. We just got to continue to just take it to the limit on everything environmental. But in the same context, we are not addressing the here and now environmental impacts that we're having by just allowing uncontrolled homelessness. Just give that one thing this much attention, and we will whoop this problem. We need to really put some teeth into that. And I think it starts with accountability. I think it starts with our public security. I think we're going to end up missing the opportunity to really shelter some people in the name of housing for everyone. What about just a freaking shelter? Excuse me, I didn't mean to do that. The next thing that I would like to say is the business engagement. We have to start bringing businesses to Eugene, not sending them away from Eugene. Let's spend the time to create jobs that pay well enough. Not everybody wants to be in the union. I own a business. I have 25 employees, and none of my employees have a want for anything. I provide the necessary things, insurance, everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Next, we will hear from John Prince, followed by Allie Lee and Patricia Hine.
Howdy, folks. Good evening, Mayor Venice, Eugene City Council. Thank you for prioritizing the health of our climate and our community, and for considering critical electrification policies here in Eugene. Cities and policymakers all over the state are looking to Eugene to set the stage for other electrification efforts that'll be essential to meeting local and statewide emission reduction goals. I think it's time that we need real concrete policy to decarbonize our buildings and protect the public health of our most vulnerable communities. It's time for us to lead by example and step up to the challenge. And you can start by stopping the spread of harmful gas infrastructure and to begin working towards retrofitting existing buildings with an emphasis on supporting low income and BIPOC and historically marginalized communities in the transition off fossil fuels. I certainly understand that people have a little bit of hesitation when it comes to how we're going to kind of make up the difference between the sources of energy that we're getting now and what a shift like this would look like. I think that I would call attention to the fact that we're still seeing prices rise, especially for things like natural gas. I'd like to call the council's attention to the OPP article from August 17th that highlights 24 organizations along with Oregon lawmakers who are calling on the state's Department of Justice to investigate Northwest Natural over false advertising to the public and in schools. This includes deceptive local newspaper advertisements, greenwashing, renewable natural gas, and spending tens of thousands of dollars creating children's workbooks to distribute to Oregon schools. These online materials and these workbooks have things that say like, natural gas, your invisible friend, pump it up. Natural gas is great. These workbooks state that natural gas appliances are safe, efficient, and economical. And I think our understanding of what is acceptable to have in the home, what materials are safe, it's changed and evolved over time. We used to have asbestos and lead paint. Those same principles require us to evaluate the risk that methane gas represents. And while major incidents like gas leaks and explosions, they make the news, I would disagree with some other testimony that I've heard tonight. And I would say that there is a correlation between natural gas, methane gas, and increase in things like asthma among children. The last thing I would like to point out is that the 3 rate hikes that Northwest Natural has imposed on its customers between October 2021 and November 2022 are a prime example of corporate price gouging that's driving inflation and being used to kind of justify delaying electrification. And some of these rates.
Thank you, John. Your time has concluded. Next, we'll hear from Allie Lee. I'm not seeing Allie in the room, nor am I seeing Allie in Zoom. So next we will hear from Patricia Hine, followed by Ron Mathis.
Good evening, Mayor Venice, City Councilors, and Manager Maderi. My name is Patty Hine. I live in the county and have lived there for some 25 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm here tonight to thank you for your ongoing commitment to climate action, to ensuring Eugene meets its climate goals under the Climate Action Plan and the Climate Recovery Ordinance of 2014. The research and the outreach have been done. I was at all the meetings. I haven't seen a lot of the people behind me at those meetings over these years, however. It's in place and it's time to act. And I don't need to remind you that our timeline is short. We don't have to fix everything at once, but we have made a very good start, and it's time to move ahead with the alacrity and the courage that this moment calls for. Some say it's impossible to get off fossil fuels. What's impossible is to live on a planet scorched by human inaction and ignorance. As hard as it is to grasp, if we don't change our energy system immediately, our planet will not be recognizable at the end of this century. That too far off for some of us to care about? Not you. Not you. I urge you to resist the urge to delay action or to be distracted by those who do not accept the responsibility to face the facts of this crisis, who lack the vision to do what is needed to confront the problems and contribute to their solutions. That lack of courage and vision and tools is their problem, but not ours, not yours. You have what you need. As we end 2022, I am proud of your hard work and progress. And I know I'm joined by the majority of Eugenians who understand that the climate crisis is here and now, and it's our duty to do our part to stop the harms that we can. We have to change now because we know what's coming if we don't. It's no longer a debate. It is time to act. And we are in such good company with other communities. It is exactly the progress we need, and you know what is before you. Thank you so much for your resolve in covering these very difficult and some people think impossible, but I like to repeat the saying, the difficult we do immediately, the impossible takes a little longer.
Patty, next we will hear from Ron Mathis, followed by Don Hetty, then William Smith.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council leaders. I appreciate the opportunity to express my concerns on the gas ban proposed for the city of Eugene. I'm a lifelong Oregon resident, and I never thought it would be possible to be dictated to by a group of people on what you can do on your individual household. It's pretty disappointing. On a personal note, I live in a rural area. Gas doesn't come all the way down our road. People to the east, what they do, and we had the ice storm of 21, which we've had severe ice storms just like 21 in the past. They ran generators for 2 weeks straight. The people to the west, they had natural gas. They were able to keep their houses warm. They were able to take showers. They were able to cook their food for their families. It's just disappointing. And I will also add that with the attacks recently on public utilities in Clackamas County, it's a concern. If a PUD goes down, it could take months for them to repair it. How are these people going to get power? I urge you to really consider what you're doing to these individuals in their houses and put it to a public vote. People should have the choice to choose how they're going to take care of their families. It shouldn't be dictated to by individuals. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we will hear from Don Hetty, followed by William Smith and David Piccioni.
Hey, good evening, Mayor, council members, city staff, those on Zoom. I'm going to inject a little levity into the evening. You know what Fred Flintstone says when he drops a bowling ball on his big toe? Smackin' frackin'. That's kind of where we're at. And I'm speaking specifically about Ward 7. Now, I didn't garner an invitation for an interview. I really didn't expect one. Now, if my application put anybody off, it was a calculated plan to maybe get an interview. I'm going to take just a brief moment. The last 3 decades of my life were 2 sober, 1 drunk. Now, how do you put that down on an application? You talk about the services that saved your life. That was my approach. Now I bring breadth and depth, and I'm offering myself as a compromise candidate because I've got an application in and I've been studying, and I can take a vote on this issue that's been discussed because I've been following it. I was at the budget committee, and I've been active in this community for decades. I know what our problems are, and we've got some really hard decisions to make money-wise. What are we going to do with the safe sleep spots when the one-time money runs out? That's just one example. I've narconned 2 people, not me myself, my manager, and I've got an open packet in my stairwell this last month. You know, it's not anybody's fault, but we got to do something about it. I've got some ideas. I've got this to offer. Some specific questions were asked at the interview. In fact, frankly, I was crestfallen. A holy guacamole word salad. Councilor Zelinka, I like buses. People over 65 can currently ride them for free. Nobody knows that. That's my first transportation move. I'm out of time, but I've got some specifics. Councilor Semple, I take naps. Councilor Ye, the same. However, equity is a bulwark against discrimination. That's all my time. Thank you. I will be on the
Don. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from William Smith, followed by David Piccioni, then David Eigel.
Thank you. William Smith, Ward 1, here to talk about wireless safety and broadband infrastructure. And to follow up on my comments, the last forum, I made an error in talking about dropped calls. And I failed to distinguish between dropped calls and evidence for a gap in coverage in wireless services. The two can be related, but and I was reminded of this after I sat down. Josh said, yeah, he has dropped calls, but it's not the coverage, it's his phone that has technical glitches. My phone has no technical glitches, so I haven't had any drop calls for several years. So anyway, that's why I made that mistake. I won't again. If I make any other mistakes, please point them out to me, because there's a lot at stake here. And I kind of like to envision us as on the same team together, maybe fighting for a championship for people's lives. And, you know, I've been on a couple of teams and won a few championships when I was a teenager in sports. And the way we relate to errors and mistakes is, yeah, fail fast, get them up front, deal with them, learn, dust yourself off and learn from them. So that's my approach. So again, I welcome any correction. Now, my overall goal, like the championship, I was asking myself, okay, well, what about the other side of this? What about it? What is the championship? And I looked at Chattanooga again. I just learned of a 10-year study that they did after they had launched their broadband fiber optic network. And they did an independent study, commissioned an independent study that showed a $2.69 billion return on investment that was widely shared throughout the community of 180,000 people, so similar size to Eugene, not just for the wealthy few, but this is what happens when you cut people's internet bills in half. They tend to reinvest it in the community, not send it off to remote shareholders. I did get an economics degree, so I guess it was worth something after all. Anyway, so that's what, and by the way, you can easily search this. I use DuckDuckGo, or if you use Google, just $2.69 billion ROI, return on investment. I highly recommend it. And then closer to home, Hillsboro, Oregon has launched their network. Population 108,000. They're on our heels.
Thank you, William. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from David Piccioni, followed by David Eigel, then Dylan Plummer.
Hello, City of Eugene. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would like to take this opportunity after this period of interruption of city council meetings and reintroduce my public image or persona as an environmentalist. I have to say that because, well, particularly right now, because it was introduced today or this month or this week as the disabled period. Well, I have not met one person that does not have some kind of disability, and I am I'm definitely not excluded from that. And I just want to say this about being an environmentalist, that my law is the land, air, and water. Those are the most important things that we need to survive as a species and as a planet. And I have to say that I got a little bit in trouble with some environmental members of the community. And I just really honestly want to say that I really forgot what had happened from one day to the next. I'm not making that up. I really forgot it. It does not matter why. I do not understand it exactly, but that is the truth. And we can look at it this way. In Buddhism, there's a story about this man who got shot in a battlefield with an arrow. So they're looking at the arrow and they're looking, well, is this arrow friendly or is this from the enemies? Is it from the clan of this guy or this guy? Does this color mean that it's an angry arrow or an arrow of medicine or whatever? It doesn't matter. The point is you got to get the arrow out of the person and cure them. That is what we have to do as an environmental group. We don't judge each other whether I like whether I listen to heavy metal, whether I like to dress like this, whether I like this or that, or I watch these movies. You know, we are trying to save this planet and save each other. That is what should be our primary concern. And I invite anybody who's disagreeing with me to parley. And I would like to say about Mayor Venice, I have decided 10 years ago that I am against fossil fuels. So the fact that you just...
Thank you, David. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from David Eigel, followed by Dylan Plummer, then Brittany Quick-Warner.
The authentic history of the many individuals in the Eugene area or the abolitionist tradition has been ignored. Falsified histories have been propagated that degrade the memory of many kind and honorable people. Few know that Villard Hall was paid for and is named for the man who married Fanny Garrison, the daughter of William Lloyd Garrison, the abolitionist editor of the Liberator, or that Fanny and their son Oswald helped to found, fund, and operate the NAACP. In 1913, in a Eugene of less than 10,000 residents, there were 1,200 active members of the Methodist Episcopal Church, a bedrock of support for abolitionism, integration, and equality, the only predominantly white church in the U.S. to recruit large numbers of the newly freed slaves into church membership, or that Frederick Dunn was a prominent and honored member. The pioneer Black resident of Eugene, Mr. Wiley Griffin's final employment was with the Eugene's Elks Club, where Dunn was a member. During his last illness in 1913, members of the Elks Club and 2 physicians came to his house to care for him. The club paid for his casket, funeral, and burial plot in the Masonic Cemetery where Professor Dunn's parents are buried. Professor Dunn talked in the press with pride about his abolitionist ancestors and playing the role of Little Harry, the Black slave child in Uncle Tom's Cabin. No one had ever heard the story of Dunn as Klan leader until 30 years after Dunn was honored, when in 1992, it was first published in a crackpot, non-peer-reviewed article. 2 members of the Eugene City Council have had direct involvement with promoting anti-white Protestant hatred and bigotry in this community, Greg Evans and Jennifer Ye. The Racing to Change exhibit at the Lane County History Museum is where Jennifer's personal bigotry is being promoted using Lane County tax revenues. As I have documented without challenge, the exhibit is loaded with grotesquely hateful misrepresentations of local history. For example, the exhibit would have the public believe that white Protestant ministers, leading citizens, and U of O professors marched about shouting racial epitaphs. How sick can you get?
I ask for the support of the honest members of the council in repairing the damage that has been done. Thank you.
Next, we will hear from Dylan Plummer, followed by Brittany Quick Warner, then Elliot Gray.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Mayor Venice, Eugene City Council members, and City Manager Maderi, thank you for this opportunity to testify tonight, and thank you so much for your patience as you sat through all of these lengthy proceedings. My name is Dylan Plummer. I'm a senior campaign representative with the Sierra Club, and I live and work in Ward 3. I'm going to keep my testimony brief. The Sierra Club strongly supports electrification and applauds the council for their resolve in moving forward with ordinances to transition our buildings to 100% renewable electricity. Electrification will benefit not only our climate, but our public health and safety. And it's not just Eugene that is discussing this hugely important issue. Just last month, Multnomah County's Public Health Department released a report documenting the significant impacts that burning gas appliances has on respiratory health, and recommended for the transition off of polluting gas appliances purely to protect the public's health and safety. And additionally, last week, the Milwaukee City Council set down the path forged by this body that I'm testifying to today, and passed 2 resolutions similar to those passed this past July in Eugene to pursue electrifying their publicly owned buildings, as well as requiring that new residential buildings be all electric. This is in addition to the over 80 local governments that have passed similar ordinances across the country, including the entire state of Washington and major cities like New York, Denver, San Francisco, and just recently, Los Angeles. I urge you to pursue this common sense approach to reducing emissions and to set the tone for what we can make to be a decade of the just transition in our city and in our country. It all starts with local action to concretely reduce emissions. I want to conclude my testimony by voicing strong support for Council's appointment of a champion for progressive values, including climate and housing justice, and to not appoint a conservative appointee that will bend over backwards to carry out the interests of polluting industry and big business. The choice is simple. I urge you to make the right one. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dylan. Next is Brittany Quick Warner, who has left Zoom. So next would be Elliot Gray, followed by Bill Sirius, and then our final speaker, Joshua Korn. Elliot Gray.
Mayor Venice, council members, city manager. I'm speaking in favor of the electrification ordinance. The courts have ruled that climate change must be addressed by politicians. You are our local politicians and therefore have a moral and ethical responsibility to act. We can no longer afford to expand our fossil fuel infrastructure. There's no doubt that we cannot, we need to be unified and can no longer afford to wait. If we do, we can no longer wait to make drastic reductions in our carbon emissions. If we don't make those reductions, we can look forward to reaching tipping points in our climate and will meet a point where we will be drastically changing our climate, and future generations are going to pay for that. We won't, but they will. Recently in the New York Times, they said that within 50 years, our climate will look more like 500 miles south of here. So think of that. That looks like Redding, California. So despite having to make difficult political decisions, they're very distasteful. People here tonight are very upset about it. I think you need to make those. I don't think it's a political vote for choice. I don't think it's a choice. We've made those choices already, and look where we are. We need to make those choices. We don't get a choice to burn in our forests right now. If it's our backyard, in our property, we don't get a choice to make, I get to drink and drive. We don't get a choice to abuse our children. We've made laws that say you don't get those choices. You need to have the courage to stand up and say, this is what we have to do, and lead us. Also, I want to make a statement about the vice president saying renewable gas. It's very expensive. It burns like normal natural gas and leaves a carbon footprint.
Thank you, Elliot. Your time has concluded. Next, we will hear from Bill Sirius, followed by Joshua Korn. Is Bill in the room? Okay. Next, we will hear from our final speaker, Joshua Korn.
First of all, I want to be clear in my speaking on wireless safety and the future of wireless technology. I personally am not calling for an outright ban on wireless technology, but a sensible move forward in understanding the safety impacts of this technology and how we can move forward and not have a wireless transmitting pole on every power pole in our community next to grandma's house. And bringing attention to some recent news, Children's Health Defense at childrenshealthdefense.org did a announcement on November 1st. And there's a local chapter here in Eugene, just met up with them at a local event yesterday, and they are recruiting both families and children that are exposed to Wi-Fi in schools and building a case against the wireless industry, both Wi-Fi in schools as well as people that have been affected health-wise from small cell antennas in their neighborhoods. And they're recruiting for these court cases. These are going to be big cases. These are led by big attorneys. They've got lots of money. They've got lots of supporters. And, I think we have a chance as a community to be on the forefront of protecting the public instead of letting this industry just run rampant against our community. And, so I urge you all to consider that. And as I mentioned before, we need to update our city codes to really, protect us against the industry that will run us over if we don't. So thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. That was our final speaker.
Thank you. I particularly want to acknowledge the hardy few who are still sitting in the room here after all of this. So congratulations on your endurance and your fortitude. And really, we very much appreciate hearing your comments and hearing your thoughts. I would give council an opportunity to speak if any councilors needed to comment on anything they've heard. But if not, I will formally close the public forum. Again, thank you all for your very thoughtful remarks and for having the energy to stay with us through this long evening. And with that, I will now close the City Council meeting and open the December 12th, 2022 meeting of the Urban Renewal Agency. Our first action item tonight is a resolution. I'm going to see, these two say different things. Resolution authorizing a biennial 24-month budget. And so am I right on the right thing? Okay. So I am going to turn to the agency president. Put a motion forward.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing a biennial budget.
Second.
Any comments, questions, discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item, Urban Renewal Agency resolution acknowledging receipt of the FY22 Urban Renewal Agency annual financial report. And again, Council President or Agency President.
I move to approve a resolution acknowledging receipt of the annual financial report for the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Excuse me all, if you, thank you. We're conducting business, so you can take conversations. Thank you.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you very much. That passes unanimously. And the next item. Public hearing and action, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget making appropriations for the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. So do we have people signed up to speak? All right.
20 words, if you can guess who it is.
Speaker, Mr. John Borofsky.
Oh, Johnny. Gonna call you Johnny Budget from now on.
Relatively new. You want me to
Read the rules to you really quick.
I think I know. Read them to you.
Is it?
Mayor and City Council, John Borofsky, Ward 3. Speaking to you tonight on the Urban Renewal Agency's supplemental budget that is being presented to you tonight for approval. Just a couple of comments on this one. You know, the Urban Renewal Agency is something that you guys will be talking about in the upcoming months as to some major decisions on what to do with our 2 urban renewal agencies. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things that are in this supplemental budget that will maybe help to guide those discussions. I know Councillor Clark and Councillor Zelenka were around when the Urban Renewal Agency helped fund the Woolworth building. The Woolworth building is paying off its debt of $600,000. It's done. There used to be a pit there. And with the use of the Urban Renewal Agency, we have a much vitalized downtown. We still have work to do, but I think that the tools that the Urban Renewal Agency provides can help us get there. And I hope you can see that moving forward. Another important part of the Urban Renewal Agency that you may not see through the budget process because it's usually glossed over during the budget presentations and the budget committee meetings is the amount of funding that goes to the Planning and Development Department through the Urban Renewal Agency. In this year's budget, it's almost $1.4 million that comes out of the Urban Renewal Agencies to help fund our Planning and Development Department. This is a department that's severely understaffed and underfunded. And if the Urban Renewal Agencies were to sunset and go away, finding the funding to do the work that is being done by those staff people and the good work would be very difficult to find. I know you're coming up with a very challenging budget cycle coming forward. So just keep some of these things in mind when you're having your discussions regarding the Urban Renewal Agencies. I know it's a tough thing because it does tend to seem like it siphons money off of the general fund, but the projects that are being done with urban renewal are worthwhile in my opinion. And I just want you guys to see that. It doesn't get a lot of play during the budget process, but they're an important tool in our city's budget. And I thank you. And I would suggest that you approve this supplemental budget. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you so much for that testimony. And with that, I ask Counselor to put a motion on the table.
I move to approve a resolution adopting the supplemental budget, making appropriations for the Urban Renewal Agency of the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Thank you so much. That passes unanimously. And now I close the Urban Renewal Agency and we'll reconvene the December 12th, 2022 meeting of the Eugene City Council. And again, we have a public hearing with action, a resolution adopting a supplemental budget, making appropriations for the City of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023. And do we have anyone signed up to? We have 3 people. Okay.
Johnny Budget.
We have 3 people signed up to speak. As no surprise, John Borowski is number 1. That was randomized. Zach Mulholland and Lisa Arkin. You'll each have 3 minutes to speak. I'm not going to introduce all of your names multiple times. So we'll hear from John Borowski, Zach Mulholland, then Lisa Arkin. You'll each have 3 minutes to speak. If you're watching the meeting and the timer should be visible, a yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light indicates the end of the 3 minutes. And for those who've connected to the meeting via phone, don't have the benefit of the timer, please be aware that your microphone will be muted at the 3-minute mark. Please note no screen sharing or displaying of information on the screen. It is not allowed. And any misuse of the platform or violation of the council's code of conduct will result in immediate termination of speaking privilege. If you have documents to give the agency, or I'm sorry, to the council, please place them in the basket near the podium. Mr. John Borowski.
Thank you. John Borowski, Ward 3, speaking to the supplemental budget for the city of Eugene. I know that you all will be coming up on challenging times in the upcoming budget. After watching the last budget committee meeting and meeting with staff, I'm aware of the challenges that are going to be in front of you. So there are just a couple of things that I'd like to point out in this supplemental budget that I like to bring to you guys' attention each year because it doesn't get a lot of play. The first one is the decision to postpone the funding of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund commitment that council has made of $500,000 to later on in the year. I understand the city manager's reasons for doing this, and I can support it, but I also support it with the knowledge that when the need is there, council has committed to putting this money into our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. As somebody who sits on that committee, I've seen the good work that it can do, and it's a very important, valuable piece of unrestricted funds that can help bridge some of our affordable housing that we need in this committee or community. You know, the city manager talked about we may be getting back to base camp instead of reaching the peak. Well, the base camp needs affordable housing and not tents. So let's work on that. Another thing that is kind of down not in the general fund, but in one of the other funds is the risk and benefit fund. If you dug down, the city of Eugene is a business, and that business employs people. And one of the things that all businesses in the state of Oregon are required to do now is fund the Oregon Paid Leave Program. Well, that comes to a tune of $480,000 for the first 6 months of this year. So our employees are being taken care of, but that comes with a cost. And for the city of Eugene, it looks like it'll be about $1 million a year. So that's just something that was down in one of the other funds that doesn't really go to the top of the list, but it's something that you guys share with all of us who are business owners and paying employees. And I appreciate that. It's a good thing. Our employees should have the ability to have paid leave when it's needed, but it does come with the cost. So those are just a couple of the things. I implore you to move forward with the manager's recommendation and also keep your commitment on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund later on as another supplemental budget. Thank you.
Thank you again, John. Next is Zach Mulholland.
Hello, Mayor, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I just wanted to comment, follow up on the discussion last week from the Budget Committee regarding the multi-lane fueling station at the airport. At a time that we need to be reducing emissions, it seems counterproductive for the city to be investing city funds in a fossil fuel fueling station at the airport. I was disappointed that I don't feel like I got clear answers on how much the city is spending on this project, as well as if it is truly too late in the process to stop. If it is too late in the process to stop it, then I guess it's just disappointing that it came to the Budget Committee essentially fait accompli without the ability to actually turn it around. So just wanted to express my disappointment there. see if you can ask the questions, how much is the city spending it on this project, and is it too late to stop it? And then I think we just need to have a discussion of how can we stop this from happening again, where we're spending city dollars on expanding fossil fuel infrastructure. As another testified tonight, Milwaukee, Oregon is moving forward on both a residential building gas ban, as well as committing to no new fossil fuel infrastructure in city-funded buildings or projects. And so I hope that this council will look at that as a next step. That's all. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Zach. Next, we will hear from Lisa Arkin, our final speaker.
Good afternoon, city councilors. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Lisa Arkin, and I live in Ward 1. I'm speaking today about the one-time funding request for what is called Sustainable and Accountable Development, the line item, which has almost $6 million for airport construction projects. And one of those projects is, quote, the additional funding for the construction of a new multi-lane automobile fueling facility at the airport. And I'm asking the city council to take a second look at this allocation before approving the budget request. Building a multi-pump gasoline fuel station on city property with government funds appears to negate the city's commitment to fossil fuel reduction and greenhouse gas reductions as stated in the city's CAP 2.0, which identifies about a critical window of 5 to 10 years to significantly reduce greenhouse gases and fuel use. We as a city are not on track, and funding a project like this will set us back even further. So can we consider how that the city council would approve millions of dollars for the construction of a multi-pump gasoline fueling station at the airport when we can't seem to find the funds to have adequate public transportation service to the airport? The City of Eugene climate actions are ones that the city has committed to move forward over the next 5 to 10 years. Can the council find a way to pull this part of the project from the airport construction funding? I hope we can find a way not to increase our construction of gas stations on city property and within city limits. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. That was our final speaker.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the three of you, Lisa and Zach and John, for speaking today. Don't know if the council, Alan, Councilor Slanka?
Yeah, thanks. John mentioned the paid sick leave. That was something that I, along with Mayor Piercy and Councilor Surratt, proposed and passed in Eugene, which actually became the basis for state law. So I'm glad to see that it's finally getting into action and helping our workers as it does across the state. I also want to take a minute or two to discuss follow up on our revenue discussion work session that we had on the climate bill. Climate projects and homelessness projects and services. And it was a very good conversation that we had, and I think we should continue it. I know we're facing a tough budget scenario in the near term, but that won't last forever. And we should start this discussion now because it does take a long time to get this through the process of figuring it out and making decisions about it. And as you know, Revenue Committee came up as an idea in the Budget Committee meeting the other night. And I think this council should start this discussion. If we want to first identify specifically what kind of projects we would want to fund. That's not a small task to figure out what kind of climate projects out of the CAP 2.0 and homelessness projects out of the TAC report that we want to come up with. That's a pretty big lift. And then secondly, identify what potential resources, revenue resources there may be, revenue sources that there may be, and what potential amounts there might be available from each of them. So while both are necessary, I don't think they necessarily have to be linked. I got that message at the last meeting. So I think council should discuss in January if whether or not the council wants to have a council-only process for this jointly with the budget committee or a broader committee to help us look at these issues. And I hope we have this conversation in January to further discuss and move forward or not on this issue. Just kind of putting a bug in people's ear.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Groves.
Thank you, Mayor. Just commenting on the fueling station at the airport. Correct, City Manager, this is for rental cars only. This isn't for, just since this has come up a couple times, would it be very difficult to get how many times cars are fueled in a year and what that would look like in the way of accumulated mileage between the airport and an existing fueling station and then back again?
I'm sure we could come up with some more information for you. I think, you know, what's important, I think big picture is you have an adopted airport master plan. All these projects have been identified for many years. This one's actually under construction. So we can certainly provide more information to explain the why behind it. But it's something that's been sort of in the works.
I just think it would help paint a picture for when the question comes up and it's actually saving. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. Any other comments or questions? Okay, yes.
Just to follow up on Councilor Zelenka's concern around revenue, would it be appropriate for us to have a subcommittee of the budget committee focus specifically on new revenue sources, or how we would, be able to maximize the revenue that we currently have, so that we can try to look at, other and more creative ways of generating revenue than the tools that we already have in the toolbox. I mean, we've got limitations, of course, but there may be some other things that we can do in terms of fees and that kind of thing that could help close some of those gaps if we're paying for things, what the fees are designed to do is they're designed to pay for up to the cost of either a project or a need, and not to exceed that, which is what taxes are for, is to, for more investment than other things, and what we can identify the things that we can fund, maybe through a supplemental fee structure that we don't already have in place.
Manager, do you want to speak to that?
I was just going to mention that one of the things that I mentioned in the budget committee meeting is that as part of our priority-based budgeting process and our insights process, we actually have a team looking at fees across the board right now and potentially other ways of doing that. I think if the council is interested in considering different ways of doing a revenue committee, we've done it several different ways, even just since I've in my career here, and I'd be happy to bring back a recommendation for you around here's something that's been successful and for you to consider and tweak.
Yeah,
I could do that in January.
If you could bring back something that would be, similar to a revenue committee or a subcommittee of the budget committee that could just zero in on revenue, I think that would be helpful to me, at least. I don't know about the rest of my colleagues.
Yeah, we've actually, like the city manager said, we've done it numerous ways in the past. We've done it with just council. We've done it with the budget committee. We've done it with broader based groups. So what I was thinking was we need to have that conversation. If the city manager wants to bring back several options for us, that would stimulate the conversation. We can have an informed conversation about it. Bottom line is buck stops at the council and we have to make the last decision. But I think it's worthy of having that revenue portion of it. But the other part of it is also what would we spend it on? That's not very clear at this point, and that needs substantial amount of work, which also involves a lot of staff work as well. So we want to make sure that that the council says yes, go do that. I think it should.
Okay, Councilor Keating.
Is it possible to parse out the airport piece prior to adoption?
I don't think so, no. because
you're gonna have to adopt it before you go on break, so.
have to adopt it now, and this is,
Before the end of the year.
yeah, this is.
It's already under construction.
it's already-
I'm aware. It's
yeah,
already,
just-
it's already,
It's
the master plan's baked. I get it. Before almost three counselors are even part of the conversation.
well,
I have grave concerns that were brought up by folks who provided testimony. I have a work session proposal in motion that's been almost a year coming about new fossil fuel infrastructure in our community. I'm adamantly, fundamentally opposed to new gas stations. If I had a time machine, I'd go back and provide testimony to a council prior to my service here and say the same thing, that rental car companies or folks who are using rental car companies don't necessarily need that handout. If they can't fuel up before they return their car, assess a fee, city gets a portion of the fee to make it a revenue generating piece. So, you know, I speaking of revenue, to both Councilor Zelenka and Councilor Evans' point, I'm enthusiastic about a revenue generating committee, but and maybe it's because I'm the new kid on the block, Mayor, and this has been already baked before my time here, but I have grave reservations about new gas stations in our community.
Right, I hear you. Oh, yes, Councilor Clark.
Thank you. City manager, maybe I'm wrong, but my colleague does have the ability to make a motion to alter this as I understand it. It's just that the consequences are that we won't authorize a budget in time for certain expenditures, and we will have a renewed process for a new public hearing, and it throws everything pretty badly wonky off schedule. Am I right about that?
Well, so this, I mean, this is not a new project. This is a project that's under construction that is coming through
Right.
supplemental budget because of inflationary needs. So it would essentially, we would just be stopping that project midstream. It's not a new thing. So could they make a recommendation? Could you make a motion to not include this project
Have we previously authorized the money for it for you?
for the main project? So the supplement, there's only a portion of it in here that's related to the
I see.
gas. It's
Okay.
it's a big project that a lot of things. are
Yeah.
happening
No,
in
I
gas.
understood now. This is a small portion to finish of a much bigger
Yes.
project that the council previously has authorized
Yes.
you to spend the money to do. And so we can't go back in time to do something that started a couple of years ago, even if.
That is, well, actually Matt's on here, so maybe we should have Matt address this. Sorry, I just saw
It's,
your hand
I
was up.
don't need to review the
Okay.
efficacy of the project. I personally don't feel the same way my colleague does. I know that this particular project is actually saving fossil fuel usage by a pretty decent amount. So I wouldn't recommend stopping it because that's going to end up wasting and using an awful lot more gasoline to see cars driven a lot more miles. So I wouldn't do that, but I just want to make sure what we're talking about here is that the process is the very last steps of a project authorized and begun a long time ago. And the changing of this won't have a real effect. Right?
That's my understanding as well.
Okay.
okay. One second. Do you have one more?
I have a quick question for the city manager. So one of the things I've learned over my 16 years is no such thing as money without strings attached to it. The money for this project, I suspect, can be only used for things at the airport. And it's not like if we didn't do this project, we could go spend it at a homeless shelter or something like that. It has definite strings attached to it. If we didn't use it, it would just go back to the federal government probably, or wherever.
I think this is actually passenger fees, but
So,
again,
but
Matt,
it has to be used at the airport. So could you include that in the analysis? Thank you.
Okay, are we clear on, do you have another comment or?
Yeah, I have no desire to block progress, but if just bringing it up, Mayor, indicates my enthusiasm for the majority passed work session on addressing new fossil fuel infrastructure in our community as it relates to new gas stations and a potential incentive for electric stations or prohibition on new gas stations. It was something that was passed by a majority of this council back in March of 2022. And just this very conversation reminds me of how critical it is to advance that conversation. So I'll stand with our majority mayor, pass this resolution, and I look forward to the work session in the new year.
All right, Councilor Evans, I think we're ready.
Move to adopt a resolution adopting a supplemental budget, making appropriations for the city of Eugene for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and that passes unanimously. Thank you very much. And with that, we are adjourned.